This is Stories from the Top, B2B Sales Buzz with Baxavanis, and I am your host, Jennifer Baxavanis. Today's sales tip comes from Sam Instone, who is the CEO of AES International. When I first met Sam and walked into his office and met his team, the first thing I thought was, these guys are so customer-centric. Well, that is a really strange way to call a company that's into professional services and, more importantly, financial advising services. How many of us out there have been victims to financial advisors that have taken us astray? AES International is the only fiduciary in the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. What does that mean? It means they are legally bound to represent their client instead of representing the products that they are pushing. And that is exactly why when you work with AES International, you can feel that they are actually trying to help you instead of push their products. So please stay tuned now to listen to Sam Instone share his ideas and mechanism on how he is growing AES International even during these challenging selling times. Sam, thank you so much for joining us at Stories from the Top. Please take a moment to introduce yourself as well as AES International.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to get the opportunity to talk to you. I'm Sam Instone. I'm the Chief Executive of AES International, and we're an organization that's extremely passionate about transforming what we see as an industry, the financial service industry, into a profession that involves making the world healthy, wealthy, and wise. So really risk mitigation, health insurance, wealth, advisory services and education type services. We originally began specializing in hostile environments and hazardous professions a long time ago, and by 2011 we were a top 50 financial services firm by size. We were the 11th and 4th fastest growing firm out of the 2.8 million firms in the UK in 2011. 2012, Richard Branson gave us the Virgin Fast Track Award. Barclays Bank gave us the Best Management Team Award, and we won the Southeast. We were a finalist for the Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year Awards. Today, we were the first chartered financial planner outside of the UK, and we're the only certified fiduciary. That's a firm that represents your best interest, not our best interest, within Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And so in a population of about 5 billion people, we're the only certified fiduciary firm.
Amazing. Sam, I am really excited that we're here today because, as you can imagine, or as you experience in your own office, people are holding on to their wallets a lot closer to themselves than they used to because of the pandemic that's happening. And you're a company that's talking about wealth and health, which are the biggest issues right now in the world. How is it that you are increasing your client base and even keeping your client base keep on buying from you right now? What are some sales tips or some management tips that you can share with our audience of how your company is continuously able to thrive in this very challenging time?
Sure, that's a fantastic question. And I think the quote, which I really like from the military, is that time spent in reconnaissance is seldom wasted. And I think I'll put that into modern terms by reading out Stephen Covey's from 7 Habits for Highly Effective People quote, that if the ladder isn't leaning against the right wall, every step we take just gets us to the wrong place faster. And so making sure that our ladder is leaning against the right wall has so many different dimensions. We use the methodology from Jim Collins' Good to Great, where we focus upon the discipline of people, discipline of thought, and discipline of action, and really making sure that we have the right people who are sitting on the right seats of the bus with the right unique abilities to actually do the job, that we've got the right leaders in place, that we're doing the training again. So training hard to fight easy, as we would say, and then discipline of thought, making sure that we're passionate about what we do. We focus upon a chosen market or a niche, and we have a good economic engine behind that. And then part 3, discipline of action, making sure that we just do it and we use technology to really scale. Is the methodology which we would use, Good to Great, but also as an individual, how can we as individuals make sure we're better prepared for client conversations? How can we listen instead of talk? How can we make sure we provide solutions instead of products? And as we moved out of traditional or into the traditional area of financial services, we very much found it was an industry that's involved in the manufacturing and vending of products. We wanted to transform that industry into profession, and a profession operates in a very different way. So it's much more pull orientated than push orientated, much more solution orientated than product orientated. And we find that the sales conversations, the sales transaction at the moment where a client signs as a sales transaction at that moment, is all about listening to the client, understanding their journey, knowing what type of client we want. Our ladder is up against the right wall, and making sure the solution which we offer really meets the need and will help achieve the future goals for that client. And so it's changed. We've been on a long journey, evolved an awful lot, but if I could go back in time, I'd definitely have made sure that our ladders were up against the right walls, both strategically, operationally, and as individuals, and we focus on knowing exactly what type of client we want, listening to them intently, being present in the moment, focusing on that niche, 1 inch wide, mile deep, and making sure that we pull people through the quality of what we do, not by the quantity, making sure the solution orientated, not product orientated.
I mean, it is quite interesting the way that you're speaking about this combination of the ladders against the wall and the angles of those ladders. Because when I sometimes have these interviews, I hear just kind of a one trick that might help everything. But from what I'm hearing here, it's more of like an angle every single step of the way, all the way from hiring to training to speaking to the customer and then leadership. How did you actually come up with this idea? What kind of journey did you have to go through to understand this sort of analogy with the ladders against the wall?
Sure. And I think, sadly, the real answer is trial and error and mistake after mistake. And from those early days of specializing in hostile environments through to realizing that there's a systemic problem in a traditional industry involved in manufacturing and vending products, and that should really, people that work with things as important as money and health, it should really be highly qualified professionals with a duty to serve our clients' best interests, not industry focused product salespeople. And really, we've gone through lesson after lesson, an often painful lesson, and constantly had to change and evolve. And we definitely think it's a multifaceted approach. And I would love to say I've got an easy hack, I've got an easy tip, but the reality is that I have no quick wins. It's trial and error, learning, testing and adjusting, A/B testing, an awful lot of hard work. And we think that if that flywheel of change, we push it around enough times, just like that big flywheel that Jim Collins talks about in Good to Great, eventually you build up momentum. And really, that's what we as an organization try to build, momentum. There are plenty of books with scaling up type methodology, Vern Harnish. There are plenty of different ways in which you can begin to build up momentum as an organization. But ultimately, we think that that's a marathon, not a sprint. What we need is lots of right fit individuals and train on our unique abilities, the tactical, short-term tactical solutions, the strategic weapons, put all of those people together into an overall plan and make sure that we execute the plan. But that plan is a marathon, not a sprint. We look at really, in gazelle organizations and scaling up are typically 25 years old, and that typically takes a long period of time. But just by focusing on these incremental small improvements across lots of different areas over a long period of time, eventually build up that momentum, and that flywheel eventually starts careering out of control, and that's where you get the uncontrolled growth. Year to date, even with COVID, we're on 7x growth. We think it is definitely one of the most difficult trading years in living memory, and year to date we're on 7x growth. And so we think by this intense focus on different areas, by following a lot of processes, a lot of core values, repetition, we can incrementally move things and hopefully get things careering out of control in order to pull lots of right fit clients towards us in the future.
Thank you for that, Sam. So in this trial and error, which is really that is the right answer, because all of these different mechanisms that you have to put together, it's almost like I'm looking at what you're explaining as though it's one of those old combination locks where you're having to make sure that every single number isn't exactly the straight line in order for it to unlock. And that would be unlocking your relationship or your successful win-win relationship with the client. So that's how I'm kind of seeing what you're explaining, is just
Yeah.
making sure all the adjustments are made all along the way. Can you share with us a story about maybe a trial and error that ended up successfully or ended up not so well, that has helped you kind of calibrate that padlock to your successes?
Sure. And there are so many of these trial and error A/B testing experiments which we constantly run. But I think one of those would be to do with persuasive education. And we believe part of the pulling that we evangelize with professionals is that we share core value number one, our expertise and our knowledge. And the way in which we do that is by technology. And so we realize that the traditional industry use an awful lot of numbers and a lot of salespeople pushing products. And we realize that a smaller number of professionals need to have a disproportionate effect. And so core value number one, how do we share their expertise? How do we scale that? We use technology, which is the final part of Jim Collins' Good to Great methodology. And we would A/B test how we could get different lead generation systems online, with that versus Facebook, paid advertising, Google AdWords, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, all types of areas which I'm too old to really properly understand. But we're constantly there looking at different types of picture, because so many people are visual learners, or different types of text, or different types of audio, against different types of mindset which people have, to look at which is the most effective lead generation, to put unaware to aware, to load up the top of the funnel, to go through the nurturing process, the triage, to make sure that we're only using our experts to speak to the right fit clients. So we then triage them through to a compelling conversation with one of our advisors, which might be a 60 to 90 minute meeting. So in order to build that overall process, there is literally thousands of bits of testing which are happening, with photographs of me annoying people in terms of remarketing campaigns, some with my eyes open, some with my eyes shut, some with me leaning back, some with me leaning forward. And we've made so many errors over so many years of blogging versus LinkedIn versus Google, to try to get to know what we know now, which is our right fit client, which is a very a senior executive. We call him Vito, very important top officer, senior executive at the top of an organization, age 45 to 65, within X earning bracket, with certain type of mindset, certain type of problem set on which our solutions will tend to provide the most value. We often think that if the quality of our questions determines the value of the advice which we can provide, and if we are getting into conversations where there are objections, it means we failed in our fundamental duty to articulate the compelling value proposition of what we do properly. Because if we ask people the right questions and we have the right people sitting in front of us, they have that aha, the eureka moment. They know that we are the only organization which has the perfect solution for their perfect type of need. We are a natural right fit partnership. If, however, we get anything wrong, we don't have a right fit client, and we don't ask the right questions, we don't articulate, we don't listen properly, then the whole system breaks down. So really, like a finely tuned engine on a racing car, like a complex combination lock, getting everything in the right place is an awful lot of work, which we spend a lot of time trying very hard to get right, but ultimately learning through trial and error.
Excellent, Sam. Well, thank you so much for your very insightful words and stories. And I know that my audience will also appreciate it. Thank you very much for sharing with us.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this interview with Sam. If anything that Sam and I talked about resonated with you, please leave us a comment below and let us know what's on your mind. Or if you just liked the interview, give us a like.